What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. As always, please hit that subscribe button. It's right down there and it's free. That enables us to keep coming to y'all as often as possible with as many interviews as possible. Now, today we have the honor and the privilege of being joined by the legend, the icon, Richie Rich. Thank you for coming through, sir.
Hey, what's going on with you, son?
Man, everything is good, man. So you got the new Richard album that's out now. Everybody should buy it, stream it, download it, etc. if you haven't already. And lots of different things on there. First track on there was Squirrel, and
Right.
you were shouting out who you did it for and shouting out a lot of how you paid attention to the factors from your era in your area.
Right.
So I think this is somewhat of a theme of your music, I'd say, throughout your whole career, but especially with Squirrel. Why is it so important for you to pay homage and to recognize the people that came before you and the influence they had on you?
To be honest with you, the funny thing about the Squirrel song is Squirrel was younger than me.
Mm,
He was a factor in the city. And the reason I spoke on Squirrel is because that's when people in my city first start killing the shiners, the dudes who were known for having it. You know what I mean? So the popular guys. And I don't know. It was on my chest to write this song, and it kind of just came out like that. But one thing about me is I'm always give it up to the people who influence me along the way. You know what I mean? Whether they older than me, younger than me, because influence can come from anywhere. You know what I mean? So in Squirrel, I got that beat, and when I turned it on, it was just, I mean, the shit just kind of like popped out of my mouth. Like I did it for Miami, I did it for Squirrel. Miami was a guy from Miami, but he was in California. He was in Oakland, and he had gold teeth, all, I mean, tops and bottoms. And this was in the early 80s.
mm,
So I spoke on Miami, I spoke on Squirrel because both of those guys were shiners. And when I'm say shiners, I mean dudes who were having it, you know what I mean? Hustlers who had the money. And both of those guys got killed based on different circumstances. So I just wanted to shed some light on that. And then two of the other guys that I mentioned, Worm and Keith Hammond, they're still around, OGs, who were Falcon boys. And a Falcon is a car, it's a Ford Falcon. And those are the cars that the OGs were riding when I was 12 and 13. And those were the guys that I was looking up to. Those are the guys who turned me out on spokes and bowls. So I always feel it's cool to pay homage to the guys who gave you the game. That's how I am, steel sharpens steel. And I don't ever like to try to act like, I made up all this shit. Most of the shit I talk about came from guys that I watched coming up. You know what I mean?
hmm
I don't know. I'm just one of them type of dudes. I'm gonna give people their flowers. So those four guys made it into that song, and a lot of people love that song. A lot of people knew those guys, and Squirrel especially was a kid who, a lot of people knew, but they probably didn't think he would ever end up in a song. You know what I mean?
mm.
And I get a lot of DMs from people like, "Yo, that was my cousin," or "That was my uncle." That's pretty dope that you know, shed some light on who he was and what he did in the neighborhood. So I just like paying homage to the OGs, bro. Whether they young or not. OG just mean that you was at it at an early age. You feel me? You can have
Right.
you can have older OGs and young OGs. You dig it?
Yes.
Right now.
Yes.
It don't
Okay.
always OG don't mean that the dude has to be older than you. If they gave you some game, they could have been older than you, younger than you. You feel me? And Squirrel, he was younger than me, but he was moving meaner than I was at the time. So I felt like, I needed to pay him that.
Yeah. And you talk about that's how you learned from these dudes in particular.
Right.
So one thing I've always been intrigued about is that a lot of people, obviously we got a lot of problems in our country, educational system, whatever, but the main thing is you and a lot of other people that are stress the importance of learning game.
Right.
You do have to learn. You do have to study. You do have to pay attention, whether that's in school or on the streets.
Right.
So why do you think some people proclaim or are so excited to talk about how dumb, ignorant they are, as opposed to your side where you're like, nah, this is what I learned. This is the game. This is how you do it.
You know what I mean? Some people view cups half full, some of them view them half empty. It's all about perspective. And a lot of people feel like if you're glorifying people who sold dope or whatever, you're glorifying a bad thing. But depending on the way you look at the cup, it can be viewed different ways. In my music, I've always tried to give people the truth about the streets, whether it's the good side of it or the bad side of it. You know what I mean? But people are always going to have their own perspectives. People are always going to look at things in different ways. Uh, but the truth of the matter is, if it happened, it happened. You know what I mean? And in Oakland, a lot of shit happened. And I speak on the shit that happened. So, as far as perspective goes, like I said, there's always going to be people who say, "Oh, well, that's that." I mean, that's their perspective. You know what I mean? My job is to report it the way I saw it, and their job is to swallow it the way their esophagus allows them to dissolve it.
There it is.
Straight up.
Now Richard is the new project and you've put out so much throughout your career, but why at this point did you decide to go with your first name and put it out there like that now after all this time?
Um, well, in a couple of other interviews, I've been asked that question. To be honest with you, Soren, this record is the beginning of me starting to just write from my chest as
Mm.
opposed to writing bravado. Rap is it's a brave sport. When we first get in it, your goal is to just talk your shit the best way you can and to make yourself look as good as possible. But you have artists like Tupac who could write on different spectrums. He could write a hit 'em up, then he could also write a Dear Mama. I've always had that same ability. Like I wrote "Do G's Get to Go to Heaven" in some of my previous music that a lot of people probably haven't heard. Like when I first came out with "Don't Do It," I had a project with a song on it called "Rodney the Geek." So I've always had a lot of range, but when I entered the game, I entered it just like everybody else on the bravado side. And when I was on Def Jam, my A&R, Tina Davis, she used to ask me, she used to be like, "I like the songs that you're submitting, but I'd like to hear a little bit more of what I hear when we're just out fucking around, riding around in the car, you know." And I was letting her know, well, I can't come out the gate preaching and teaching. I got to come out smashing, get them on my team. Then I can, showcase a little bit more of my writing spectrum. Well, at this age and at this juncture, I feel like the world has enough of the bravado bullshit popping off, and there's kids looking at shit, and there's kids dying based on a lot of shit that people aren't even really doing. So, as an OG or an older artist, I feel like it's damn near my duty to show people that it's okay to be vulnerable and tell all of your truths and not just some of them. You get where I'm coming from? So the
Yeah.
Richter Project, there are songs on there where I'm addressing certain things from the neighborhood. I have a song on there called Ballad of a Town Nigga that's basically addressing what is happening to our youth. And basically, I feel like at this point in my career, I'm not just here to flex or floss as much as I'm here to try to educate, because I was able to play the street game for a long time and make my way out of it, unscathed, no bullet wounds. But it's the way I played the street that allowed me to, you know, exit it in a manner. So I feel like that information is paramount and should be shared, as opposed to just pushing the narrative of, hey, XYZ, this is how you get it, and blah, 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 and leading more of our youth down that blind highway. To me, my job is to show these young dudes how to stay alive, because a lot of these young dudes don't know how cool it is to get old. I grew up, we didn't think we was gonna make it past 19. That was the thing. Then 21 was the number, you know. 50 was never the number. It was 19, 21. And a lot of these youngsters are out here streamlining their way to the grave, not knowing that, I mean, it's cool to get old. You feel me? It's
Right.
actually cool. So in Richard, I just wanted to open up a bit more. You did?